Hello students, hope you all are doing great. I am Achal Chaudhary, working as an assistant professor, BBA department in St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management. So students, I am back with my online lecture series of income tax. So students, it's your lecture number 4 from unit 2. In previous lecture, we have covered income from salaries. So we have covered the numerical as well as the theoretical portion of income from salaries. And today we are going to start a new topic, that is income from house property. So let's discuss this topic in brief. What is income from house property? Income from house property covers the rent earned from the house property which is chargeable to tax. So income, if we are talking about the income which is earned from the house property, means house property से आप income कैसे earn करेंगे? Through the lending of that property, through the rent which you are getting from that house property, right? So the amount which will be taxable, which will be chargeable for tax, that income is known as the income from house property. And that should be earned from the house property of the individual of the SSC. Sometimes the owner may have to pay tax on deemed rent in case the property is not let out. The income from house property is added included in a person gross total income only if he satisfies three essential conditions. So these are the three conditions which a SSC should fulfill for the income from house property. First, the SSC is the owner of that property. So it is important that SSC should be the owner of that property. Second, property must consist of, that property should be a type of, like it should be house, building or any kind of land which he can give to the you can say person on rent. The property may be used for any purpose except used by the owner for the purpose of running his business or profession. So वो प्रॉपर्टी, अगर वो प्रॉपर्टी पर बिजनेस या फिर प्रोफेशन रन हो रहा है, ओनर प्रोफेशन या बिजनेस रन करने के लिए वो प्रॉपर्टी यूज कर रहा है, सो इन दैट केस इट विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड एज योर इनकम फ्रॉम हाउस प्रॉपर्टी. It will not be your house property income. So students, while computing the income from house property, there are certain deductions that will be like available for the SSE to deduct from the income from house property, to deduct from the gross total income. So in that case, these are the three deduction which a person will avail under the income from house property. First is interest paid on a home loan. If a SSC has taken any kind of home loan और दैट पर्टिकुलर प्रॉपर्टी जिसकी इनकम को आप कैलकुलेट कर रहे हो, वो रेंट यू कैन से वो लोन उसी प्रॉपर्टी पर होना चाहिए, वो लोन उसी प्रॉपर्टी के रिगार्डिंग होना चाहिए. देन इन दैट केस जो भी आप इंटरेस्ट पे कर रहे हो, इंटरेस्ट पेड की भी आपको डिडक्शन मिलती है. एज अ डिडक्शन यू विल गेट over that income, you can say over that home loan. Second deduction is your municipal tax paid. If a person has paid some municipal taxes, then he or she will get the particular amount of deduction from the net income from house property. Then third is your standard deduction, and also there is a deduction of 30% which is known as the standard deduction, which a SSC can avail on the income from house property. So after computing the gross income, in that case, after computing the gross total income, then in that case you will avail the 30% deduction also. Gross total income में से जो आपकी gross income आई है house property से, उसमें से you will deduct 30% as your standard deduction. So this is a chart which helps you to understand the various deductions which are allowed under the income from house property. First condition is, if that house property is used as let out or deemed to out let out property, in that case a person or SSC will get the standard deduction of 30% of NAV, and also interest on borrowed capital. If there is any kind of borrowed capital regarding that house property, then that interest will also be considered as your deduction, and that is fully allowed. If that property is self-occupied property, in that case, interest on borrowed capital, first is where loan is taken for repair, renewal, or reconstruction of house property. Whenever in question it has been mentioned that loan has been taken for the certain cases like for repair, renewal, or reconstruction, in that case maximum 30,000 का आपको exemption मिलता है when the loan is taken for acquisition or construction of house property. Then in that case there are two scenarios. First is if loan is taken before 1st April 1999, in that case 30,000 of rupees 30,000 deduction will be provided to the SSC. And if that loan is taken after the 1st April 1999, then in that case there are two conditions like acquisition और construction completed within 5 years. 5 years के अंदर आपका acquisition और construction complete हो गया है, and also certificate from lender specifying interest payable, आपके पास वो certificate भी है. In that case, if you have the certificate and also the construction has been completed in 5 years, then you can avail a maximum of rupees 2 lakh deduction you can avail. But if you don't have any one of these two, then in that case you will get a deduction of rupees 30,000 only. Then next is computation of income from house property. When the property let out throughout the previous year, so this will be the calculation, this will be the basis for calculation. First, computation of GAV. First of all, what you have to do is you have to find out the gross annual value of that property. So first step will be compute ER. First of all, you have to compute the ER, and ER equals to higher of municipal value or फेयर रेंट. इनमें से जो भी आपकी हायर वैल्यू होगी, ईदर म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू और फेयर रेंट, उन दोनों में से यू हैव टू कैलकुलेट हायर कौन सा अमाउंट है. देन if it is below than the your standard rent, if it is not exceeding your standard rent, then it will be your ER. But if it is exceeding your you can say standard rent, in that case your ER will be equals to standard rent. Suppose a municipal value is rupees 1,20,000, whereas fair rent is 1,30,000, but your standard rent is 1,25,000. In that case your standard rent आपका जो municipal value of fair rent में आपका higher value क्या आ रहा है, that is 1,30,000, which is your fair rent. Okay, higher क्या है 1,30,000, but it is more than the standard rent because standard rent कितना है आपका 1,25,000. So हम लोग यहाँ पे किसको assume करेंगे, हम लोग ER को assume करेंगे that it is your standard rent, means ER will be 1,25,000. Understood? पहले first of all what we have to compare, we have to compare the municipal value and fair rent. इन दोनों में से higher value लेना है हम लोगों को. Then second we have to also see कि अगर वो standard rent को exceed कर रहा है, so in that case हमें standard rent को अपना base value और ER value हमें compute करना होगा, उसको हम ER value मानेंगे. Then second step is you have to compute the actual rent received or receivable. So actual rent जब भी आप receive मतलब लिखते हैं, जब भी आप compute करते हैं actual rent को, you have to deduct the unrealized rent if you haven't received any rent for like 2 months or 3 months. So वो आपको deduct करना होगा from your actual rent, then you will get the amount. In third step what you have to do is you have to compare your step 1 step 2, that is your ER with your actual rent. Then in step 4 what you have to do is GAV will be the higher of ER and actual rent. आपका step 1 और step 2 की जो भी higher amount होगी, step 1 में suppose 1,25,000 है and step 2 में आपका 1,30,000 है, then in that case your GAV will be 1,30,000. So this is how you have to calculate the gross annual value. Then after that you have to deduct any municipal taxes if there is any kind of municipal taxes which is paid by the owner of that particular property in the previous year जिसके लिए आप calculate कर रहे हो income. So that will be deducted from GAV. Then whatever the amount you are getting, that will be your net annual value NAV. Then following two deduction will be paid on this NAV. First is 30%, that is your standard deduction. As I told you, we have to ensure the standard deduction of 30%, and 30% is calculated on NAV. So 30% of NAV and interest on borrowed capital. So that will be your deduction under section 24. After deducting these value from NAV, whatever the amount will you will get, that will be your income from house property. Second situation is when house property which was partially let out and partially vacant during the year. So in that case, in such cases, what happened that where the house property was partially let out and partially vacant during the year, so there are two scenarios which will affect your actual rent received. So first scenario, when the actual rent received or receivable is more than the expected rent, then in that case your gross annual value will be your actual rent received because it is higher than the expected rent. Then in next scenario, when the actual rent received or receivable is less than the expected rent due to the vacancy of the property for some time during the year, then in that case also your gross annual value of the property will be calculated on the basis of actual rent received or receivable. Next case is when the part of the house property is let out for a particular part of your, you can say a period of the year, in rest of the year occupied for on residence. So it's a combination of both, that half of the portion was let out for a particular time period, and after a particular time period that house property is occupied for on residence. So in that case, how will you calculate the gross annual value? So let's have a look at how to calculate the gross annual value. So first is expected rent ER by letting out the property for the whole year higher of the municipal value or fair rent, which will be the higher, that will be your expected rent, or actual rent received or receivable only for the period it was let out. So these two we have, first of all we have to calculate these two, and then we have to compute the higher value from these two, that will be our gross annual value. So in this case, what happens, student, the period for which was used for self occupancy, so that will not be considered for your income from house property for the calculation part. That is irrelevant information. If it is mentioned that self occupancy के time पे इतना amount बनता है या फिर इतना amount receive हुआ है या anything which is given as your information in the question, so that is irrelevant for you. What you have to consider is एक्चुअल अमाउंट और यू कैन से एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट जो आपको प्रॉपर्टी के लेट आउट पीरियड से मिलता है, दैट विल बी यू कैन से वैल्यूएबल इंफॉर्मेशन फॉर यू. So students, that's it for today's lecture. In next video we will solve some numerical related to income from house property. So based on today's lecture, these are the questions which has been already asked in your university exam. First is how to calculate the annual value of the house. Question number 2. Explain the chargeability of tax under the head income from house property. So you have to solve both of these two questions, and if you have any query or you have any doubt, then do let me know. I will arrange a doubt session for you to tackle with all your queries. Thank you so much for your time. Stay tuned for more videos.